What's going on, guys? It's Element here, and welcome to the very last pick'ems for Overwatch League Season 4. It's been about 5 months we've been doing this series now. Um, it's insane that we've gone on for so long and we've just continuously got up every week. This is the most consistent I think I've been with content for in terms of it, but thank you to anybody who's watched it. I'm just saying that now. Obviously there's gonna be more content coming specifically on off season. Some releases are probably gonna start happening soon, and then closer towards the end of the year we're probably gonna get some signings. Obviously as the news as well. We'll probably do another video talking about this, but briefly we're gonna be getting Overwatch 2 gameplay for season 5 next year, which is quite exciting.
You're
Um, so yeah, that's the whole thing that we're going to be planning out to. You can expect at some point soon, potentially, probably by at least the end of the month. I'll give it that. Let's say by then. But
hopefully.
but for now, we have a very long bracket to break down. So
Oh god.
if just say strap in, get some popcorn, get a drink, and just strap in for some probably wrong takes about what's gonna happen. But
The
one last
worst
time.
takes.
So this isn't in order of what time it starts. This is in order of what was drawn because Shanghai got the first pick. The
It's an
fir-
order of seed.
so starting off with the top seed, we have Shanghai Dragons taking on the current champions, the San Francisco Shock, in what is basically what was described as Coach Moon as a revenge match. It's the only way to put it, really, because
Yeah.
Shock knocked out. I think it was in winners, right? They knocked them out last year in the playoffs. It's winners
Yes.
finals, yeah.
Winners finals.
So Shanghai obviously I mean, they were dominant last year, but they've been really hot this year. They're looking to use this new and improved team with Fate brought into the fray. And obviously a newer Shock team that isn't as dominant as it has been. They're trying to take that opportunity to then almost prove themselves and knock out or at least send the current champions into the losers bracket right away. Whether that happens or not is a different story because if you go off of the play-ins performance, the Shocker kicking into gear at the right time. I'm gonna shut up now and let you talk about this because obviously this is your team. So by all means.
This is I'll start with Shanghai because I think you have to give Shanghai a lot of credit. This is the most dominant Shanghai team we've seen ever of all 3 or 4 seasons of OWL. This is the best and probably will be the best Shanghai team for a long time, and it is arguable, if not pretty much set in stone, that this is the best team in Overwatch League this season, by far. The way they forced the meta for months, the way they're able to adapt metas like it's nothing. This team is very good, and I honestly I could see them winning this very easily. But you're also dealing with playoff shock. Playoff shock is a different beast, and we saw it in play-ins. It looked like they just routed through Toronto like they were nothing. They were a piece of paper, and they crumpled them up and threw them in the trash pretty fucking fast. So playoff shock, when they kick it into gear, they can do just about anything they want. And just because they lost Striker and they're, you know, moving some supports around and testing out different DPS lines and different DPS comps in general, with Ons maybe playing Tracer and Glister playing Tracer instead of playing the normal sniper specialist that they both realistically are. You're getting a different shock team, but you're not getting a bad shock team. I think that's what people are forgetting. This team hasn't lost its footing yet. They are still a dominant force in the Overwatch League. They are basically the same team minus one support and one DPS.
Yeah,
So don't count them out that
yeah.
quickly.
I mean the Shock's downfall, as some people put it this season, has been wildly over exaggerated because they haven't been getting to the stage finals, but they've still got the best record left in the who out of all the teams that are left, they have the best record in the league. So were the other team that were 12-4. Everybody else were 11-5 and below. Um, One thing that you do have to bring into the shock is, especially looking at that playoff playing game. Yes, they were dominant against Toronto, but there were still some questions about how their positioning was going. Obviously, FD God was going off and taking battles on his own, and there's something you need to draw into him that he needs to be sticking with the team and not going off on his own excursions at times. Um, but other than that, I think that they've really drilled this team together. They just have to be careful not to be caught out on specific comps. I don't think their Reinhardt comps are necessarily going to get them anywhere, especially against the Dragons, but they seem quite confident on Orisa comps. I mean, they can put in Smurf, they can run Wrecking Ball, they can run the Winston comps with Smurf. They should realistically be fine in terms of being caught out on compositions. Where it comes down to is, are the Shanghai players better at playing the specialist heroes that the Shock have than they are? I mean, you're going up against Fladder um and Lip, who have been arguably the number one and number two DPS in the East region. Obviously, the rankings say differently for the overall league because you got the Dallas Fuel players involved as well, and some of
Hmm.
the Fennec Gladiators. But they have been dominant in the East. They have been probably number one and two all season. Um, you don't really want to be caught out in the mirror match and then getting hard deft. So whether you play, if you it's whether you play, because I don't think they should really playing Sombra or Ant in the Sombra, which I know they've done in the past. Because if you're going up against Lips Sombra, it's not going to go very well. I think that Nero and Glister are probably going to be their preferred
I was
starting
about to
duo.
say I can tell you who their starting duo it's gonna be. It's gonna be Glister on Sniper and Nero on Tracer
I
because Nero can also play anti-dive or anti-ball with Torb.
I don't know. I don't think they're gonna put their Glister on snipers specifically. Um, Purely because I don't think it's really a hard hit scan meta that we're in at the moment, or that
True.
I mean they could put him on Soldier 76. He played Soldier a little bit for London last season. Um, Obviously they
Mhm.
could always put him on the Cowboy again. I'm gonna call him that because I'm not.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, they could put him on that. He's been really good on that character all season. When they played him, so
Hmm.
I think avoiding playing going into the Widowmaker, falling into the Widowmaker clutch
Avoiding a
early.
mirror match
Yeah, that's
is
going to
what
be
they have to
key.
do.
And I think if you have Nero against Fleda on Farah, I don't know who wins that, or genuinely, because yes, Fleda arguably is one of the best Farahs Overwatch League has ever seen. But
But so is Nero.
Nero is that upstart. He's been really good. He was really good on Farah last year for the Guangzhou Charge, and he's shown that he can play that hero at a high level this season. So it's going to be tough. I think that Smurf and Troy are going to be the starting tanks for this
I
round.
I think so too, unless they play an Orisa Torb comp,
Yeah.
in which case Super is gonna play.
But I don't necessarily know if you're going to want to do that. But also I don't know if you're going to want to play the bull comp, because if they're playing Sombra, then their bull comp is going to win because they have the better Sombra player either way. The Sombra just shuts down the enemy bull. Um,
I think
so
I think they play. I think they play dive, some
yeah.
sort of dive, whether that's Lucio Rush dive or just classic dive with Loose Moira Tracer.
Yeah, I think that is definitely the stronger comp that they need to be playing, and I think that I don't. I think it's pretty obvious what Shanghai are going to come out of, but then again, it's been probably the longest time out of any team that we've not seen them play, so we don't know what they've been labbing for the last month and a bit. They could come out in a completely different comp and catch them off guard, and I think they may do that honestly. I mean, because they've been played this bull comp to death over the last two
Yeah,
stages, and they're gonna know that Shock has counter comped for that. So I'd expect them to come out on something new-ish. But
maybe.
if it doesn't work out for them, I can see them falling back on the Wrecking Ball comps eventually. So, without further ado, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna.
Oh boy.
I'm sorry, Joe, but
I have to stick with my boys.
I'm
I
going
have to
for two
stick with my
dragons.
boys. I'm going 3-2 shock. I have to stick with my
Ooh,
boys. I can't not.
that's fair.
It's gonna bite me in the ass, but you guys have seen it the past 5 or so months. I can't bet against shock because every time I do, they prove me wrong, and wipe the floor with people.
But I feel like there's the point to say with Shock going into the losers bracket that everybody needs to remember their 2019 run, that they lost 3-2 to Atlanta in the first round and then 3-0 the entire losers bracket.
This is true. This losers bracket, and we'll talk about this more, but this losers bracket could possibly be very weak. And if Shock moved down there, they kind of have free reign against most of these teams that could be falling into
Yeah.
losers.
So, moving on to our second seed match, which actually isn't our second seed match. These aren't mute. The
How are
second
they?
seed.
No.
No,
Okay.
the fuel is
No,
the
these are
second seed.
by day maybe.
Yeah, maybe. But anyway, the second game on the bracket is Philadelphia Fusion going up against the LA Gladiators. Now, obviously, LA Gladiators didn't get to choose Fusion, but this ends up being an old grudge match from last season. Every single time that the two teams faced in the 2020 season, the Fusion came out on top. Um, and obviously, we've seen the brief talk between the head coach of the LA Gladiators and of EQO in the Pick'em stream. um, I think that like the Gladiators head coach said, this is a different fusion team than what we saw last year. Arguably, it's a better fusion team. I think,
Yeah.
and I think that the addition of Mano and Hopper in the tank role has really strengthened the team. They've really given the team a good core, even if they haven't had the best of results or most consistent results in the APAC. It's still a phenomenal tank line. And I think that Funny Astro and Alarm are arguably the best support duo coming into this. I think Alarm is arguably the best flex support
In the league.
in the league at this point. I mean, he's proven that time and time again. And Funny Astro has, well, if he can play that Lucio, he's proven that he can play Brig this season. So he has
Hmm.
expanded. But if he can play the comfort pick of Lucio, they
He'll
do
be
look
fine.
very strong. But
Hmm.
conversely, the Gladiators have been what they've been the Gladiators for most of the season. They have been picking it up in stage four. Obviously, I believe they went 4-0, and then they obviously ended up going on to win the whole thing, winning the
Hmm.
Countdown Cup. And I think that I don't think I'm gonna say it, I don't think that the tank line of the Gladiators is as strong as Fusion's. I think that Space is probably the better off tank out of the if you compare the two. But I think that Mano is a better main tank than Muse, even though that's no disrespect to Muse, he is still phenomenal. But I think Mano has proven himself more when he was on the NYXL, and then the redemption he's got coming onto the Fusion, proving himself. I think yes, Muse is the rookie, and he's arguably in contention for Rookie of the Year. But I think experience wins there in that battle. And I think experience is going to win overall in this. I think the Fusion will win this, honestly. I don't, but by how much I don't know. I'll get onto that in a little bit, but I'll let you say what are your thoughts on this game.
I think this fusion team is putting the pieces together, but I think this Glads team has had the pieces together for a while and finally proved that they have the pieces together in Countdown. The thing is, we talk a lot about Funny Astro and Alarm, but you have to remember these two top tier supports are going against two of the best supports in the West. Skewed and Shu are nothing to laugh about. And if Alarm gets caught out on a BAP mirror, or Skewed catches Funny Astro out on a Lucio or a Brig mirror, or even Moth comes in and catches Funny Astro out on a Lucio mirror, that's gonna hurt Fusion a lot. It's gonna come down to, can Mono Hotba beat out Space Muse, and can Carpe and EQO, or Carpe and Rascal, beat out the Kev and
Bird
now I
Ring.
can't remember their other, and Birdring duo. That's what it's really gonna come down to. Because if even one player on either side gets caught out on a mirror, the other team is gonna take full advantage of that because these realistically are pretty equal teams, which is surprising that they ended up getting matched together. Because on paper, they're both very equal. They're both very talented. They have some of the best players in both regions on their sides. So if one player gets caught out, the rest of the team is gonna fall apart around them pretty quickly.
Yeah. I think also building off of that, looking at the Gladiators team, there is the argument that the rookies on the Gladiators team could be the ones that end up getting called out rather than some of the experience on Fusion's team. But I do agree that, especially looking at the supports, I feel like if they play Moth, if they play Moth and Skewered, if they play Moth and Shu, on specific heroes they do come out on top. I don't know if they go into the mirror with Malfoy and Lucio. They may put Funny Astro on the Brigitte pick, as you can shield bash to Lucio and shut him down that way, rather than going for the mirror. But then, conversely, they could just, if they're playing Skewed, then I think that Skewed just is the better brick player. So
And the
it's
problem with not mirroring the Lucio, if they play Moth, is you lose out on Lucio's healing if you're playing Brig, because then you have to play Brawly to get the full potential of Brig healing instead of being able to play Spaced with Lucio.
yeah. So I'm gonna let you go first on this one. Who wins?
I think Glads win.
Yeah. By
Yeah,
how many
I
maps?
think I think Glads win 3-1.
Hmm, okay.
I think, like I said, I think Glads have had it together. I don't think I think they've even had it together when they don't make Hawaii. I think they got gypped out of a couple Hawaii trips. Obviously, probably most importantly, Countdown and Summer. It looked like they kind of got gypped out of two really good tournament runs because of play-ins. And I think they've had it together since Summer. I don't think Philly has had it together since Summer. I think they just got it together in Countdown and then really got it together in play-ins.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to hurt.
Okay. I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna say Fusion win 3-2.
Hmm.
I think that Fusion are a very hot streak team. They've proven that throughout the year. We saw that mainly in the main melee. They went 4-0, and then they took this Shanghai team. They took them to 6 maps in what was supposed to be a 5 map series. So
That's true.
I think if the Fusion are on a hot streak, and if they can get the lead on Glads, I think, or even if they can like reverse sweep them, and boom, because once Glads go into the boomage, they tend to fall apart, which is the same for Fusion, so it could happen either way. But I think Fusion are gonna do it this time. That the fairy tale run we were all talking about, I don't think they're gonna go all the way, but I think they make it past the first round and they go into winners. So this is actually the first game of the day of the first day. We have the Washington Justice taking on the Dallas Fuel. Um, essentially, this is the Sparkle Decay grudge match. As
Yeah.
Sparkle put it, he just wants to murder Decay. Um, I think going into this, you're gonna look at Dallas Fuel as a stronger team, but at the same time, you have to remember that Dallas have been slowly degressing as the year has gone on. They peaked in the May Melee, and then every single stage they've gone down somewhat. Second in June, third in summer, and then they didn't even qualify
They didn't qualify
in
for
Countdown.
Countdown.
So, yes, that is because Coach Rush has been telling them to train less because they've been burnt out. And I think this game comes down to whether or not Dallas have warmed up enough without actually having any games to play. Because scrim matches, scrim books, as we've said all season, they don't mean anything really. They can win all the games in scrims, but then when it comes onto the big stage and it comes onto the actual matches, they could fall apart.
Mhm.
Justice have looked very hot recently. Especially coming out of the play-ins, and don't get me
Okay.
wrong, I definitely think that they are the weakest team coming out of the play-ins. I will say that, but they still looked hot coming out of the play-ins. But
I
go on.
I'll get to that later. I'll get to my opinion on Washington later.
I know I can already figure what that is, but
Mhm.
yeah, I just don't think that it's as one-sided as everybody think this game is necessarily going to be. But I still think ultimately Dallas will win this. But I think every time these two teams have faced, it's always been 5 maps. Even when Washington have been on a cold streak, they've still taken teams like Dallas to 5 maps. So don't count Justice out. Even though they are very up and down, they seem to be up at the moment. That's all I'm gonna leave my bet on.
My bit, count the justice out. Right, I'm not. I'm honestly
Oh,
not kidding.
go on.
Don't don't expect much from this team. If you are a Washington fan, do not expect much from this team. They looked Yes, they looked good against Paris. I think that was very lucky that they looked that good against Paris because they looked very, very sloppy against Houston. And I think the Houston win was absolutely all luck. I don't think they should have won that Houston game by any stretch of the imagination. I think Houston got too cocky and let it slip. I think this team, it can be good. This team has shown that they are good. But the fact that they fell into a pit and regressed to almost nothing after one good stage and still somehow made play-ins is very telling more on the rest of the league than on how good Washington actually is. I don't think this team, well, yes, they may deserve to be here because they made it through play-ins and they proved themselves that they could make play-ins. I do not see this team going far. I think that every team above and below them is far stronger, including the other play-in teams that they beat.
I think another thing you have to take into this is okay, what if and when they do go into losers, they'll be playing the loser of Atlanta Chengdu, which are two better teams than them if you go off the standings and just the general performances throughout this year.
They will get washed by the loser of Atlanta Chengdu. I can tell you that right now. I do not see this team going anywhere past the first round. And if they do, good for them. That's surprising because then they prove to me that they aren't actually as messy and as sloppy as I think that they are. But looking at past performances, looking at performances even from qualifiers besides what was it, May or June that they went 4-0,
Yeah, May.
then you look at the rest of their performances through qualifiers even, it just hasn't looked like a very good team. It looks like Decay is carrying them, Assassin is carrying. They have one carry every stage, and once that carry falls apart, they fall apart around them, whether
Which
that's DPS or tank.
which arguably should not be happening with the talent on this team. I don't. You look at this team and I don't know. Like it is what went wrong because they should have had a better regular season than what they did. If that just by going off the talent, they have former league winners on this team. They have
Unfortunately.
MVP candidates, but
Yes.
something has gone wrong. Somewhere.
Unfortunately, there's a difference between harboring talent and making a very talented roster and actually having team chemistry. Because
Yeah,
none of these players have the team chemistry. They are just all talent.
and I think
And
that
having that many big egos is not a good thing for a team.
I think that shows in Decay's reactions when the team was falling apart when Assassin famously fell into the Rialto rivers. He literally face palmed on camera. Um, I think that he is very not done with this team, but I think that he won't stay on this team after this season. I think this is
No.
his last hurrah with Justice. So enough of the stalling. I'm going to go first. You went first last time. I'm going
Sure.
3-1 fuel.
I'm going 3-0.
Okay.
I don't even see unless Mag has a really fucking good map somewhere. Sorry, unless Mag has a really good map somewhere. I don't see Justice even taking a map off Dallas. I think Dallas is still strong enough to take a 3-0 against the weakest team in playoffs.
Yeah, that's fair. All right. So the last game of round one and the last game of the day on day one, we have the Atlanta Range, who were the third seed team in the West, going up against the second seed team in the East. Every time these two teams have played, it's always been Chengdu coming out on top. Um, I kind of see this going the same way again, unless
Hmm.
Atlanta have done something or changed something in how they run their team comps to counter the bull comp, but I don't see Gator Hawk and Gator really running anything else but either Ryan Diva or Ryan Arisa. I cannot see Gator at all running the ball. He does not seem like the type of main tank that plays ball. From what he's played all season, I don't think he's really played it much at all.
No,
So
almost none.
this is going to be down to whether or not they can force Chengdu into going into a Broly style, or if they can actually prove that this Arisa comp can break down the bull comp, because so far they've never been able to do it. Um, but it also then comes down to what Chengdu we see coming out, because obviously they have famously been an up and down team all season as well. Yes, they've come into
Hmm.
their own recently, and they've proven that they are one of the premier teams on this bull composition. But they are like the Sharks this year. They have been that team who have had the rotating door of roster swaps. They'll make wholesale changes halfway through games, and that was what let them down in the Countdown Cup finals, and it's what let them down in the Summer Showdown finals. It's that once one of their compositions is boomed, the other team players that they bring in aren't nearly as warmed up enough as they need to be to then come in and salvage a match. And I think that's the difference. We're not even talking. I'm not just not even going on to talking about like with the Shark.
Hmm.
They have the talent and they have the mental to do those swaps. Whereas I don't think Chengdu are nearly as experienced. But all that ramble, I don't think they're going to need to. I can't really see Atlanta coming out with something that's going to be able to counter the ball comp that Chengdu and everything come out on. And I think they have looked the stronger team every single time they face.
Hmm.
I'm gonna go with 3-1 the Chengdu Hunters.
I, I really can't see Atlanta. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. It's gonna come down to a lot of factors for Atlanta because Atlanta's a strong team. It's gonna come down to how well does Pelican play on ping because we already know Pelican is gonna have to play on ping unless they don't play Pelican at all. In which case, I don't think Atlanta wins. I don't think Edison is better than Pelican. I don't think Kai Edison can carry them through probably even losers bracket at that point. Um, but it's gonna come down to can they find a way to force Chengdu out of ball comp, and if that is running Ryan Rush with Sombra to hack the ball into oblivion and just make him a non-factor completely for the entire match, or if that's trying to mirror ball comp or running Orisa Diva or Orisa Sigma um, to just double shield and hold the front line, then maybe they do that. But they're gonna need to force that ball comp away from Chengdu because, like you said, they Chengdu does not have the talent or I think the mental to be able to switch mid game and still play well. I think they practice what they practice, and then if it doesn't work, they get boomed very easily.
Yeah,
That being said, I think Chengdu takes it. I don't see Atlanta really doing much here.
yeah. There is a revenge story in there that they could be fueled off of, but they've not really shown much of that they can actually do much against this Chengdu team for all of the teams at the times that they faced this season. So it's just the way it is. So
Hmm.
we're gonna finish the entire winners and then move on to losers. So we're gonna be going with my first game, which I know is different to yours, but
Yes.
it's completely different actually. My game is the Shanghai Dragons against the Philadelphia Fusion, and I'm not even gonna beat around the bush. This is where Fusion go into losers. For me, then they have had one good performance against the Shanghai Dragons, and that was in May, like I said, with their 6 maps. But every other time, actually, no, they beat them. They beat them in Countdown Cup, but that was when Shanghai were resting players and they were doing roster swaps. So it wasn't really a full strength Shanghai. Um, but I still think player for player, composition for composition, Shanghai are more versatile. They
Mhm.
have the players there that can beat Fusion on any mirror that you could probably think of. And I think this is going to be a fairly rough game for Fusion. I think they go down to losers in the 3-1.
And
Oh,
then there's my game. So if it somehow does shake out this way, my game is Shot Glads. The the rivalry game. Like of every rivalry in Owl, I feel like this is the rivalry game, Shot Glads. There's there's a lot of heat between these teams. There always has been a lot of heat between these teams. And I think this is where Glads fall into losers. I I think if Shock is on a tear like they were in play-ins and they tear through or even have a close game with Shanghai, I don't think Glads stand a chance against playoff Shock. I think playoff Shock is a scary beast. I think we saw glimpses of it this weekend. Um, I think we saw glimpses of it in the 2019 run, um, and even in the losers run where they swept through losers. I think there's a different beast when players like Super, like Smurf, like Choi, like Violet get into playoffs because these are the guys who were on Shock for both those championships. Even hell, even Tayo because he was there for last year's uh, tournament and last year's Grand. I think there is a different energy that comes out of San Francisco when Shock makes playoffs, and I think it's something that every team should be fearful of because it is something that can carry them through a winners bracket like 2 years ago, or can carry or sorry, like last year, or can carry them through a losers bracket like 2 years ago.
the Shock just kick into a different gear when it comes to actual playoffs, knockouts. They've proven it 2 years in a row. So,
Hmm.
what's the score for yours?
3-1 Shock.
Okay. Okay, so moving into our winners round two, which I believe is the same. We have
I believe it is, yes.
Dallas Fuel taking on the Chengdu Hunters. So these two teams faced in the summer showdown, and Dallas, who were probably close to burning out, if not burnt out at that point, lost to them both times in a row. The first game it was sort of close, and then the second game they just come off of a 3-hour series with the Atlanta Rain, and they got boomed 3-0, I believe. Um, this they would have had a day to rest, um, so it's not going to be like playing back-to-back games. I think Dallas is the stronger team out of these two, and that when Chengdu got their wins, I believe it was not all down to because yes, they are a very talented team, but a lot of it was down to the fact that the Hunters were facing a Dallas team that were probably really, really tired at that point. So I think Dallas win this. I'm not entirely sure by how many maps yet, but I think they do win this. They have the stronger comps. I think that if Fearless has gotten enough practice in this last month on Wrecking Ball and on those ball comps, I think that they could be a strong match against Chengdu in the mirror, and I think that Chengdu are the second team, even though they have been the team since they came into the league that ran the ball comp. I think at this point they are the second team to run that ball comp, and I think that they can be challenged by a team like Dallas. By a main tank like Fearless has been proven who is an
Hmm.
MVP candidate, that he can be flexible. But I also think if they force him off that Brawl comp, they also look better in the Brody comps with the Reinhardt. Praelis has been one of the best Reinhardts in the league all season, if not the best. And then they can also do them in the dive mirror, whereas because that has been their thing.
Hmm.
Moira, Lucio, Rush, Dive has been their comp, their meta that they forced on a lot of teams this season. So I just think Dallas are the stronger team here. Um, what do you think?
I I think we've seen glimpses of Dallas playing a ball comp. I think we saw it maybe a few times when ball comp was starting to come up because of Shanghai and Chengdu. That being said, unless, like you said, unless Fearless has been really practicing this ball comp in these like months at this point off that they've had, or month that they've had off, I think Chengdu is the better ball comp team. But I think everything else around the tanks for Dallas is a lot better than everything around the tanks for Chengdu. I think the DPS line is better. I think the healers are better on Dallas. Jexa and
Builder.
I love not being able to remember people, but you know who I'm talking about. Um, I think it is gonna come down to, can Dallas force Chengdu? Like, can Atlanta force Chengdu out of ball? Can Dallas force Chengdu out of playing ball comp and then thrive on the ball comp themselves? Because I don't think they have to switch if they switch Chengdu out of ball comp. I don't think Dallas has to switch in any means. I don't think they have to switch to a brawly comp. I think they can still play spaced the way they do. But it's gonna come down to, who is the better wrecking ball? Is it gonna be Fearless or is it gonna be Chengdu and their wrecking ball?
So I'm gonna go. I think this is gonna be close. I think this is gonna be the closest, closer than my winners finals. I'm gonna go 3-2 to Dallas Fuel. I think they get redemption for the Summer Showdown, and they get. I think looking at this winners bracket for me, they're going to want to get that match with the Shanghai Dragons in the winners final if this is what ends up happening with Shanghai go
Mhm.
for winners. So I think that is also going to be something that drives them through this specific scenario. I'm gonna go 3-2.
And then, looking at my side of things, I think Dallas is gonna want a team that they know they can play, that they've beaten before, even if the last couple of times Shock has beaten Dallas. I think it's gonna drive them. I think they want to keep this rivalry going, this new rivalry that's kind of emerging. They want to keep that fire between these teams. Um, I think Dallas takes us 3-2.
So we'll do the winners finals as well. Obviously we got two different ones. So this is a repeat. This is what the fourth or fifth time they would have been facing at this point of the season. Um, Obviously Dallas famously came out on top in the main melee with the from the top rope shadow from Fearless that won the Blizzard World. Um,
Hmm.
but Shanghai have come out on top every other time, and I think that weighs down on Dallas's mind a lot. Um, and I know that they're going to be training to for another potential clash with the Dragons, knowing that they're going to want to win them. This is the match out of any match, even though they beat them in the main melee, they won a stage. Um, this is to go to grand finals. This is to get the biggest prize in all of Overwatch League, and they're gonna want to prove themselves here more than ever. Um,
Hmm.
I think this is going to be another close one between these two teams, and I think that it's going to be, can Fearless match up to Fate, which he has never been able to do at this point that we've seen in the season. Can Fearless beat his old team and prove that his swap away from Shanghai was more successful than staying on Shanghai? That is what is on the line here as well.
Hmm.
Um, I'm going to I'm going to have West bias here, and this might bite me in the ass, but I'm going to go and say Dallas will go to grand finals in in 5 maps. They win 3-2.
I think I agree with the idea that Dallas goes into grands. I'm just not sure of the score yet. I think this is where we see, you know, um, Shock drop into losers finally, and um, possibly run through the rest of losers, whatever's left of it by the time we get there. Um, but I still do think Shock is strong. It's going to come down to a lot of factors for Shock. Can they beat out Fearless? Can a few other issues go differently than the last couple of times they have played each other? That being said, I can't see Shock beating a team that they've lost to almost every every match this season. I think they beat them twice all season, and they've played like 4 times, or maybe once all season and they played 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Um, I can't see with history Shock winning this, though I do think it will be close. I think it's gonna be 3-2 Dallas.
Okay. Dallas goes to the finals in both of those. Alright. So, this is a completely different bracket to both of us apart from a little bit, but the first game on the Wednesday for me is that same grudge match that you had in your winners round two. It's the Shock versus the Gladiators, and I'm just gonna go straight into this. And I think Shock win this 3-1. Um, then you basically broke down everything that is to break down about this. This is the rivalry, and I think that Shock have stronger compositions coming out, and they're going to want to prove to themselves that they can be gladiators when it matters. Because whoever loses here obviously goes out of the entire playoffs, and I don't think Shock are
Mhm.
going to want to go out round one. That would
No.
not be a very good look for the current champions. So yeah, I think Shock get through the first round, and they get a match with the Chengdu Hunters in elimination round two.
Mine, is basically, I think, what your winners was. So I think we just mirrored our winners,
Yeah,
but in losers. And you broke down a lot of this Shanghai Philly game, and I think this is where Philly rocks out and leaves playoffs. Unfortunately, as much as I love the Philadelphia Fusion because of area, um, Shanghai is just a better team. That's all.
yeah,
3-1.
yeah, that's fair. That game comes down to whether or not Carpe can level up in the playoffs. Like we've all been wanting him to. He's not
Mhm.
really showed that kind of form since getting them to the grand finals in 2018 against London, where they lost as well. So there is a lot on the line. Carpe and Fusion are quite possibly the best winners that this league has ever seen, or the best losers that this game have ever seen, or
Yes,
the best winners as well.
absolutely.
So yeah, they've got a lot riding on this run, and quite possibly it's going to come to an end a lot sooner than they want it to. So, moving into the bottom of our bracket, I believe this game is the same. We both have Washington and Atlanta in this game. Think
Yes.
Atlanta are the stronger team. Um, I can't really make a case for justice here. I tried to in the Dallas game, but the Reign are just, if you look at the, not only if you look at the power rankings, if you look at the division, if you look at the games that they played against each other, the Reign are the better team. Um, like for like, I think that if Pelican plays, he can keep the K quiet, even on ping. I think that Kai, or if you put in Addison, if you want to play like Tracer Sombra or something, or I think even Kai can keep um Assassin quiet. I think that you got. I think Mag is the one standout, but I think Gator is still quite possibly the better main tank. But depending on the
Mhm.
day, I think Mag can do a lot for Justice. But yeah, they're just the better team, really. Um, I'm gonna go with a 3-1 for the Rain.
Do I do 2 3-0s? Do I do it?
Do you?
I think I do it.
Oof.
I just I can't see Mag diffing Gator. I think that's the X factor right now for Justice, and I think Mag proved that during play-ins. I think Mag is the X factor. I can't see Mag diffing, honestly, either Dallas's main tank or Atlanta's main tank. It's just not possible in my mind.
It's
So
fair.
unless Mag has like some god tier play on like a Blizz World or something like that, like Fearless's top rope shatter, I can't see them even taking a map in playoffs.
That would be a rough way to crash out, but it would be a very justice way to go out.
Hmm.
So, moving into our elimination rounds too, I have the San Francisco Shock going up against the Chengdu Hunters. Um, I don't really know the history of this game. I don't know if these two have ever really faced off. I don't think we have.
I could look really quick while you talk
Um,
about it.
but I think that the only composition where Chengdu possibly looks stronger is the ball composition. I mean, maybe not even that. You've got two different main tanks on shop that can play ball. Obviously, you'd want to go with Smurf in this sort of situation if you're going to be playing the ball,
Mhm.
but Super has been known to dabble in the wrecking ball realm. But yeah, it's Shark are the championship caliber team. They know how to get into a team's head and force them off specific compositions, and I think this is where the Chengdu Hunters are going to get exposed.
Mhm.
If they hadn't already been exposed by the Dallas Fuel, I think that Shark are gonna know exactly how to dismantle them at that point. And I think this is gonna be. I'm gonna go another. This is the safe predictions, but I'm gonna go 3-1. I think that they have the potential to take a map, but actually, no, no, I'm gonna go 3-0. I think Shark win this 3-0.
Mhm.
I think that it's it's literally one comp that we've always seen this Chengdu team play,
Yeah,
and I
and
think
even then, I
that
think Shock is a better ball comp team because they have a replaceable ball.
yeah,
If Smurf doesn't play well, they have Super. Super doesn't play well, they have Smurf.
exactly. So I think this is a very straightforward game. So your elimination round two is at Hunters against
Dragons.
Dragons. Ooh, okay, come on.
This is a much more even matchup than Shock Hunters, in my opinion, because I think the East teams know each other a lot better and know how to counter comp ball comp a lot better than West teams. And we've seen differences in both of these teams because I believe they've played each other this season. I don't remember exactly when, but obviously they had to have. There are only like 5 teams in APAC.
Summer Showdown
Um,
finals.
yeah, exactly. And we've seen that Shanghai can beat them, but I know Chengdu gave them a run for their money, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not unlike Chengdu to give the top team in APAC a run for their money because they know what they're gonna run. They know how they run it, they know when they run it, and they know how, how Shanghai wants to go about these sort of things. So this is gonna be a close match. It's just gonna come down to who runs the ball comp better. And if they need to switch again, I don't think Chengdu has the switching power that Shanghai has. So that being said, I think this goes 3-1 to Dragons.
Right. So going into our elimination round two, I have the Atlanta Rain taking on the Fusion. They get a little bit further than you did. This is a very close match, actually. Looking at it, they have like for like talent on both teams. I think that maybe Fusion have the better DPS if Pelican can't play. Um, but I think Mano and
Mhm.
Hopper perfectly match up with Hulk and Gator and exactly what they play. No matter the composition, they both play the same thing. I think that maybe Mano has a little bit more flexibility in terms of being able to play Wrecking Ball. But other than that, they
Mhm.
pretty much play the same main tanks. I mean, Hopper and Hawk pretty much play the same things. I think Hopper is a little more flexible as well. He can play the Zarya, which we haven't really seen Hawk play. He's mostly been Diva Sigma most of the season.
Mhm.
I think where this comes down to is can Iris and Masa match up to Alarm and Funny Astro? And if Atlanta can catch them out, or if Alarm and Astro can catch them out, that will be the
Mhm.
difference maker.
Hmm.
This is a hard one for me. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I mean, this is all on you because
I know.
again, somehow we have had completely different losers brackets
Yeah, which is good, honestly.
entirely. Mhm.
Um, I think I give it to Atlanta too. Yeah, if that feels right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, okay. Go on.
Well, you're gonna have to pick. So
I'm gonna sit on it while you do yours. You know what?
okay.
Go for it.
So Atlanta Glads is a very interesting match in my head. On paper, this is a good match. In reality, we'll see. Um, I think Atlanta has the better tanks and the better DPS, unless Kev has some wild match like he did most of Countdown, honestly. But unless Kevster is at Countdown Cup level, I think Kai Pelican is better than Birdring Kevster. I think um, the tanks on both sides are pretty equally matched, but I think Atlanta's tanks are a little better. I think what it's going to come down to is, does Shu Skewed beat Atlanta's supports? And to that effect, I do not believe they do. I think Atlanta has more potential to run different comps, especially different healer comps, than maybe Glad's. I think Glad's really stick to either just, BAP Brig or BAP Loose or BAP, basically anything BAP or like Moira. Um, Whereas I think Atlanta can play, pharmacy if they need to. They're open to running a few different comps that don't really rely heavily on a Baptiste, uh, because they're a lot more flexible, and I think that's what gives them the slight advantage over the Gladiators. Just the healing gives them the slight advantage over the Gladiators, because I think they're way more flexible and can run a lot of different comps based on their supports. So that being said, I'm gonna give this a 3-1 to Atlanta.
You know what? You've sold me on Atlanta. I'm
I
gonna.
just think they have a really good team, and I don't understand why they don't prove it.
Yeah.
I
This
don't know what's missing, because there's nothing missing.
not really. They've had a season of unfortunate circumstances, wherever it's flight delays, illnesses, something has gone wrong for them at every single point, and hopefully at this point in the season it all comes together for them, and this is where they prove it. Now, going into my elimination round three, I don't think they win this, quite frankly. Um,
Neither do I.
Shock versus Atlanta, I think they had to have played, right? I don't remember them playing though. So
Shock Atlanta have to. Yeah, they played.
yeah,
They played in qualifiers, I think. I don't think they've played in tournament, but
yeah.
I believe
So
they played in qualifiers at one point.
either way, I think that Shock, no matter what composition they play on, I think that they have more flexibility in what they can play. Um,
Mhm.
I think maybe at some point FD God may get a little bit too over aggressive for his liking, but at that point, then you just switch him out for Twilight, and then you're fine because you can just run either Zen Ana, you can
No.
run Bap Ana, um, then you're good. So
Mhm.
I'm gonna give this to Shop 3 maps to 1. I think that there will be a point where maybe one of their teams, one of their newer players may slip up a little bit, but then at that point they just sub them out and it comes together for them. Okay. So that pretty much sums up my win losers bracket apart from the final. What's your round three?
Close to the same. It's just because we had that weird mix up in round one where I said Shock and you said Shanghai.
Yeah.
Um, I'll be honest, I don't really have much to say about Shanghai Atlanta. We've seen how it goes almost every tournament cycle, and it doesn't particularly end well for Atlanta, if you haven't noticed.
No.
Um, so I don't really know what else I can break down about this matchup because we've seen it so often, and we pretty much know it either goes 3-0 or 3-1 to Shanghai. So I don't really feel confident in saying anything other than 3-1, especially now with the unfortunate circumstance of Pelican's lung collapsing
Yeah.
and him not being able to travel with the team for the foreseeable future, which is obviously right now. Oh boy,
Oh,
my losers, losers finals.
does it let you? It doesn't let me predict who wins
What losers
elimination
final?
finals. Yeah, there's no like plus or minus for me. So
It does for me.
I'm just gonna figure that out in post, and I'm just gonna break down who I think is gonna win here. Because that's what we're really here for. So this is obviously a repeat of round one. Now I believe we both have the same losers at this point now. Shock
Yes,
Shanghai.
shock Shanghai.
This is winners finals from last year all over again. But in losers, they actually go out if they lose this time.
Yes,
Um,
and this time my stress levels are at 90,000 instead of just n 90, like it was in round 1. Now
so
looking at this, I am scared.
alright, there we go. Fixed it. Okay, so looking at this, I think that both teams have the potential to pull out in the clutch. I think that maybe Shanghai have proven it more this season that they can win in the clutch, coming through multiple losers brackets in the several stages they've been in.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you can't really count off Shock in the playoffs. It's a really hard one to predict. I
I wanna hear what you go before I pick.
I think if Shock can learn from, specifically because they lost in my one, if they can learn from their 3-2 loss in the first one and implement what went wrong, and turn it around to make it go right,
Mhm,
I think that they can win this. But obviously, they would be just been coming off a series with Atlanta. I think it's going to be a fairly straightforward series with Atlanta for them. So they could be
mhm,
riding some high, where Shanghai wouldn't have played since the first day after losing to the Fuel again, so they could be a little bit down in the dumps. So going off
mhm.
purely morale, because these teams are pretty much evenly matched at every single point. Um, I just gonna let me ask go sorry to Shock this time, and Shock go to grand finals again.
I huh.
Hmm.
I once again have a shock bias because they're the team that got me into Overwatch League. They are the reason that I do this, that I record these videos every week or every 2 weeks. Um, and as much as I wanna see them three-peat, I think Shanghai takes this losers run and what they learn from their losers run and just sort of run the table with Shock. I think they are evenly matched, like you said. I think they have been evenly matched for probably the whole season, even though we have rarely seen them play each other. But I just don't see Shock winning this.
Hmm.
I could see it going to a map 5 or, you know, something like that, but I think Shanghai takes what they've learned and they just kind of roll the floor because I feel like they'll see every comp that Shock run by that time
Yeah.
because they will have seen Ball with Chengdu. They will have seen at least some form of dive with Philly. They'll see Orisa comp and Ryan comp with Atlanta. So unless Shock just really come out after riding a high of, making it all the way to winners and unfortunately losing to Dallas, I I can't see them beating Shanghai twice. I think Shanghai is too strong to be beaten by Shock twice.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So you think Shanghai wins 3-2?
Mhm.
in your one there is a brand new Overwatch League champion being crowned. That is one hell of a final. Okay, so mine's different. Obviously, mine's Dallas versus Shock, which has been, I think we've broken down throughout this video and throughout all of the videos. This has been a rivalry that's been growing throughout the season, and then it comes to a head here. This one is quite literally for all of the marbles. Um, I think that obviously this is going to be Dallas's first time in this setting in general. And I think that they're going to want to prove themselves and prove that just because they have been falling off this year, that doesn't matter, and that they can pull out in the clutch and win this. Um, and going off of what you said with Shanghai, I believe that Dallas are pretty much exactly the same team as Shanghai in terms of how they play, in terms of their dominance throughout the season. And I think they would have seen everything coming for the shock that they could possibly run. Um, Obviously Dallas would have come through the winners bracket in this scenario. They'd be on that major high of coming out against all of these teams that they struggled with at some point in the season and coming out on top. I think this is going to be a 7 mapper. I think that this is going to be a really good final. And I'm going to go 4 maps to 3 for the Dallas Fuel, and we have a brand new champion here. I think Dallas win it all. That's my grand finals. So, who wins the Dallas Shanghai rivalry this time on your end?
I think, um, like you said, I think Dallas will have seen everything that Shanghai can run, which is mostly just ball comp. I'll be honest. Um, but I think again, unless I'm missing something, and unless Shanghai didn't play Dallas in winners at all before they got knocked out. Oh well, no, they couldn't have. But especially seeing the Chengdu ball comp in winners, um, I just don't. I don't really see Shanghai losing. I think there's going to be a fire under their ass. I will put an asterisk as a Shock fan and as a non-analyst. Obviously, I think Shock are going to three-peat. Don't worry, I'm riding the high right now after playing. But from an analytical standpoint, I can't see Shanghai not winning grands. I think they want to prove and put a stamp on the fact that they are and probably will be for a while the most dominant Overwatch League team. Um, I I think it's going to be a 7 mapper as well. I think it's 4-3 Shanghai, and unfortunately, we don't get to see Shock get crowned the most dominant team of Overwatch in general. Though I do believe they still are with two championships to everybody to London and Shanghai's one. But I think Shanghai want to put a ribbon on the present that has been Shanghai's dominance this season.
Yep. So that is our entire playoff bracket. This has been one hell of a series to put together. I like to think it's gotten better as we've gone along.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
so if you've at all enjoyed this series at any point, if you're still watching, oh my god, thank you so much. This has been an hour-long video. But yeah, stay tuned for season breakdowns for um some kind
at
of
least at least Shock London.
yes,
I
at
think we
least
said
those
we were
two.
gonna do.
Yes. And potentially a draft style breakdown for Overwatch 2 teams we could do. For our teams
Hmm,
as well, we could be coming in the future. So look out
hmm.
for that. And if, like I said, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new, and we'll see you guys whenever the next video is. Bye.
See